This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. We're learning a lot about the Trump Organization in the fraud case of the century, but we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to hear from longtime insider and consigliere Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was scheduled to testify early next week for the New York Attorney General in her case in chief. We sort of have a broad outline of what his testimony against Donald Trump would be, but it's going to be postponed just a little bit longer as Michael Cohen has a proclaimed medical condition that's going to keep him off the stand at least for next week. That came up late at the end of the day on Friday during trial with a comment by the Attorney General that they needed to go sidebar with the judge to talk about a scheduling issue. We now have pieced it together and determined that it's Michael Cohen not being able to attend the trial next week. Now, that's not such a blow at all to the New York Attorney General, and we shouldn't worry about anything other than wishing Michael Cohen a speedy recovery from his medical condition. He will ultimately take the stand. He's been subpoenaed to do so. He's willing to do so, as we know here on Political Beatdown and the MeidasTouch network. But things happen during a trial, especially a long trial that can go on for 100 days or more. Witnesses slip, their scheduling slots move, and they get taken either out of order, as we like to say in the trial game, or just at another time. Yes, the Attorney General thought a good moment in the momentum of the narrative in front of the judge was to bring Michael Cohen in this week after 2 weeks of hearing from the former chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, for the Trump Organization, the former controller for the Trump Organization, Jeff McConney, as the two insiders, Patrick Burney, who just testified, a young assistant vice president who reported ultimately to both Weisselberg and McConney at the Trump Organization to talk about valuation of assets and devaluation of assets, the fraudulent manipulation of value within the Trump Organization. Who better to do that but a young assistant vice president? And that was Patrick Burney. And after all of that, and the lead outside accountant from Mazars, who was the 12-year accountant and auditor for all things Donald Trump, including him personally, we had a good sort of rhythm going with the Attorney General of insiders and outsiders. It almost was like clockwork. And I'm sure, as I know from being a trial lawyer, it was done on purpose. It was a purposeful set of decisions. Let's do two insiders, leading money men. Let's do two outsiders. Let's go have a banker. Let's have a broker. Let's have an insurance executive come in to talk about the various frauds. Now let's go back to Michael Cohen. That was the goal anyway, but it happens. I've been doing trial work for 32 years. I've tried over 35 cases. I've had to take many a witness out of turn, not at the exact moment that I wanted, but it turns out fine in the wash. And Michael Cohen, assuming his health condition it stays stable, and we wish him well there, he'll testify, at the appropriate time. And as we like to say in the game, the appropriate time is when he testifies. Would they have liked it to have been a little bit earlier? Maybe. So let's talk about what Michael Cohen will likely testify to, postponing the mano a mano of Donald Trump versus Michael Cohen as a sub-story, and then talk about Donna Kidder, Kidder, who's been with the Trump Organization and still is there for 17 years as the assistant controller, a control accounting function underneath Jeff McConney, underneath Alan Weisselberg, who will be testifying early next week. As a side note, these are people, Bernie, who testified at length about the Trump Organization at Alan Weisselberg and Donald Trump's instruction, manipulating the value of assets in order to fill a hole. They had a hole on their assets because Forbes magazine had outed Donald Trump about the size of his condo, and it found out that it was based on plans and records, and fire marshal plans was 2/3 smaller, and therefore they had to shrink the number on the balance sheet for Donald Trump, and they had to fill it with something else. And so Bernie talked about using a presidential premium, a made-up number, to inflate the assets on the balance sheet. But people like Bernie and Donna Kidder, even though they've been with the Trump organization for 17 years, 18 years, in Bernie's case, almost 10 years, Donald Trump claims not to know any of these people. There's in his deposition that he finally gave several months ago to the New York Attorney General, they asked him specifically about the people that she knew she was going to put on the stand as witnesses. And he went down the list and they asked him, do you know Patrick Bernie? This is a guy who's been who's a vice president with the organization and been there for 10 years. He says, a gentleman who works for the Trump organization, I believe. The questioner asked, do you know him personally? He says, not very well. Donna Kidder, this is the woman that's going to be on the stand early this week in place of Michael Cohen. Likewise, I don't know her, Trump responded. You don't know her personally? Trump said, I know who they are, but I don't really. You don't work with her closely about Donna Kidder? No. And he went on, and they went on. And Donna Kidder's going to, I'm sure, challenge that notion that Donald Trump doesn't know who the assistant controller of the Trump organization is for the last 18 years. Before we get to what Donna Kidder is going to say to obviously corroborate what Jeff McConney, the controller, said about the manipulation of asset value at Donald Trump's behest, and her other boss, Alan Weisselberg, giving her the same instruction. Obviously, she's been subpoenaed, but she would not have been put on the stand had she not been extensively interviewed by the Office of Attorney General. They know exactly what she's going to say on the stand. And so we'll tune into that for next week. But Michael Cohen, when he finally takes the stand, will testify consistent with what he said in 2019 under oath to Congress, that he knows of and participated in with Donald Trump and Alan Weisselberg and Jeff McConney, the manipulation of asset value fraudulently in order to increase Donald Trump's net worth for various reasons, to take out bigger loans, to move him up the charts on the Forbes 400 list of top wealthy people in the world, which mattered to Donald Trump, and that he deflated assets. This was his testimony, Michael Cohen in Congress. He deflated assets in order to get the benefit of tax breaks by having lower asset values. Asset values, by the way, that also went up and down and were never consistent on even federal election filings of assets. Donald Trump claimed at various times different numbers that were not consistent, did not track, did not match. And Michael Cohen will also testify about the methods that they used internally in order to satisfy the boss to fix his financial statements and increase them and pump them up artificially. Michael Cohen will testify, as we know from his prior testimony, that there was a big hole on the balance sheet caused by the Forbes magazine expose that disclosed that the Trump penthouse was 2/3 smaller than was claimed, and therefore the value had to come off the board, if you will, and be replaced by something else. And since they hadn't acquired any new assets, they just increased the value. Michael Cohen will say they reversed engineered the numbers. They would come up with, well, this is the number the boss wants for 40 Wall Street, a building he owned in Lower Manhattan, and they just kind of figured out a way to come up with that, manipulating appraisals and manipulating data in order to reach that number. Right, so they worked backward. They backed into the number. That was one method that they used, and another method was to add a premium just to artificially inflate. So that's going to be the testimony of Michael Cohen. Whether Donald Trump wants to sit there for it or not, I doubt now that Donald Trump is going to show up for Donna Kidder being the replacement that day. You know, this is like showing up at a Broadway show, paying a few $1,000s for tickets and finding out that the star, like Hugh Jackman, will not be performing today, and he'll be performed by some person that only his family knows who it is. That's what's going to happen next week. I don't think Donald Trump, who testified under oath that he barely knows the person that he's employed for 18 years in Donna Kidder, is going to show up for the assistant controller of the Trump organization. He didn't show up, Donald Trump, for the controller of the Trump organization, nor Alan Weisselberg, the CFO. So no offense to Ms. Kidder, but I don't think that Donald Trump, your boss, is showing up for your testimony. I guess he'll wait to see when Cohen will announce that he'll be back, presumably with a doctor's note, to take the stand. But we'll follow it. We're following all the twists and turns, most of which are very normal. I mean, I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it. other than wishing Michael Cohen, a friend of the pod, well and good health. But in terms of he's being taken out of order, it won't be this week, it'll be next week or sometime in later October. It really doesn't matter to the Attorney General's case. She's methodically presenting her evidence, witness by witness, insider, outsider, document by document, with a spellbound Judge Engoron, with no jury, looking at every piece of paper and evaluating the credibility of every witness, because he's hearing this trial and will make the ultimate decisions related to it. So to a judge, it really doesn't matter. Michael Cohen comes this week or next week. It might have made a little bit more of an impact on a jury, because it could have got the jury's tongues wagging. Ooh, Michael Cohen was supposed to come. Where's Michael Cohen? But, to the judge, he doesn't really care, to be frank. So it'll make press. I'm here to talk about it. Talk about Miss Kidder, who's going to be the replacement next week, if you will, for Mr. Cohen. But we'll get back to Michael Cohen, and this case will get back on track. And what we're watching, as I've said before, is a boa constrictor. It is just the slow squeeze of Donald Trump, day by day, evidence by evidence, witness by witness, by a skilled Office of Attorney General. I've been up against the Office of Attorney General. I wouldn't trifle with them. They're skilled. They're rolling out lawyer after lawyer to handle the cross-examination and direct examination of witnesses, and they're doing a masterful job. It's a masterclass on litigation practice, on trial practice. I'll use it when I teach in the future. By contrast, when you see Michael Cohen take the stand, we've heard on reasonable reporting that it's going to be Alina Habba. I would pay to watch Alina Habba attempt to cross-examine Michael Cohen. Now, people have said in the paper and reporting that Alina Habba is the new Michael Cohen. I'm not sure about that. Michael Cohen didn't really do the trial work for Donald Trump. He was really the ultimate consummate insider, consigliere, and fixer. Think of him as Michael Clayton from the old movie with George Clooney, not Alina Habba. If there is a comparable to Michael Cohen today, it's Boris Epshteyn. Boris Epshteyn isn't cross-examining anybody in a courtroom, but is behind the scenes as a mini puppet master, trying to fix everything in Donald Trump's world. He brought in the lawyers for Donald Trump that are being used in the criminal cases, Todd Blanche and Chris Keiss. He's sat at counsel table during criminal cases and arraignments and indictments to show his close proximity to power, but doesn't do anything in those courtrooms. But he's a person of interest. He was an unindicted co-conspirator in Jack Smith's Jan 6th election interference case in the District of Columbia. He is a person of interest in Georgia and has been subpoenaed to testify in the trial in 2 weeks in Georgia against Sidney Powell and Ken Chesborough. And from the Jan 6 committee and other reporting, he was very involved with coordinating the fake elector scheme and process from the White House perspective, coordinating with the campaign and lawyers, that Boris Epshteyn. So Michael Cohen, or Alina Habba is not Michael Cohen, Boris Epshteyn is Michael Cohen. But we'll continue to bring you this kind of analysis on hot takes just like this one. I do it exclusively on the MeidasTouch network. Watch me here. Watch me on Legal AF, the leading podcast at the intersection of law and politics, only on the MeidasTouch network. Also on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Leave me a high five. Leave me a thumbs up on this particular hot take. It helps with the ratings. And until my next hot take, my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.